I'd like to welcome our next speaker to the stage. As Chris said, only a friend, colleague, but incredible mentor, an inspirational leader. And she's here to talk to us about the future of work, which is obviously extremely topical at the moment. So I'd like to welcome Anne-Marie Malley, Deloitte's UK Consulting Lead, to the stage.
Thank you, Candice, for that gorgeous introduction, and a huge congratulations to you and the team for pulling this off. For any of you who might have been here 24 hours ago, it was an empty hangar, so it now looks very, very different. It's quite remarkable. So I am delighted to be here today for many reasons. It's so nice to be here virtually, but it is so good to see all of you here in person. What a treat after the couple of years that we have all had. And I'm going to talk today about a few things. So I am going to talk about the future of work. I'm also going to talk about the employee experience as part of the future of work. I'm also going to talk about leadership and leadership as an enabler to the future of work. And finally, I'm going to talk about diversity and inclusion and our role as leaders to build a much more diverse business and life. So I would really like this session to be super interactive, so please do pose your questions. And I'm also going to pause as we go through and ask some questions of the audience. So please do participate and share your perspectives. So I want to start with the future of work, which means very many different things to very many different people. And I find it quite helpful to talk about it in three different dimensions. So firstly, the work itself, so what we actually do. The second is the worker, the people who do the work. And then finally, the workplace, so the environment virtually and in person that we create to get the work done. So if we just start with work, what the actual work will look like in the future and how that will get delivered. As you all know better than I, technology continues to automate and augment much of the routine activity that we do, and it allows us to focus on that higher end touch. So as Morten talked about, dealing with customers, spending more time with customers, and allowing us as leaders to enable that for our people. And to give an example from our global network, one of our clients, a health board in New Zealand, uses ServiceNow engagement platform to revolutionise the way that they interact between patients and workers to integrate HR and IT service management. And what this did was deliver a 29% increase in productivity and 80,000 hours of caregiver capacity that could then be moved so that the right people could be doing the right work at the right time. Now that augmented workforce for all of us is the norm. Many organisations, and we're one of them, have digital FTEs as part of their workforce planning. And in our world that we have now of humans working alongside technology, the value and output of our work will continue to evolve fast alongside the evolution of technology. So now let's talk about the worker, the people who perform the work as it changes, and how organisations access the talent that they need to succeed. Whether it's harnessing the power of the gig economy or tapping into the power of the crowd, there's a real shift towards considering a total workforce ecosystem. Leaders are beginning to think more expansively about who is in their workforce of the future. A great example of this is WPP. So WPP have 100,000 employees, and they have many hundred thousands of freelancers who they rely on. They visualise their workforce.
So here we are on the floor of the Farnborough Conference Centre.
And when they think about culture development and career building, they don't just think about that innermost ring of their employees, they think about the holistic ecosystem. And there's also a skills and capability angle in this for all of us. We need to equip our workforce to do the work of the future. Technology skills are, of course, required, and we need to keep continually investing in technology skills. But most important, I think, are the human skills. We need to recognise these and we need to nurture them. And a few examples of these would be communication, collaboration, and cognitive skills, and us working out how do we continue to evolve those. Another great example of an organisation doing things around the worker is Unilever. They use their AI-enabled internal talent marketplace to unlock 300,000 hours by redeploying 9,000 of their employees during the pandemic. This addressed new and very different business demands at the same time as giving their employees different and more meaningful work to engage in. And finally, I want to talk about the workplace. So, as leaders, to design the right environment, both physical and virtual, that allows our people to do the best work that they can. This means totally reimagining the tools, the technology, and the environment that we provide to our workers. We need physical spaces that are designed to support creative thinking, collaboration, underpinned by a digital infrastructure that drives that ongoing productivity. Talking about the future of work from the perspective of work, workers, and workplace is not new. We were talking about it way before the pandemic. But the events of the last 2 years have seen a very seismic shift. COVID has given us a new benchmark for how quickly we can drive change within organisations, how quickly we can adapt business models and change our ways of working. And it has undoubtedly raised workers' expectations. So, enough from me. I would love to hear your perspectives on this. What does the future of work mean to your organisations? Going to Nico. Do we have a... Sorry, Phil.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Phil Crombie from Estelle's. So I have a global team procurement. So we have a global procurement team. I have an employee in Brazil, employees in San Francisco, Chicago, London, Japan.
Everywhere.
And we're completely virtual. Everyone's working at home. And I think you can see that model growing over time. It's very organic, it's agile, so we're grabbing whatever we can and staying in constant contact. But I think to your point on the people, there's a foundation. So there's a foundation of trust and running on an outcomes-based model with your staff.
Yeah.
So no longer are you checking, are they online? If the delivery is there, the trust is there, and you can run on that model. But I do think there's a huge opportunity for more technology. We're in a space where, as you say, you've seen a big spike in increased tech, but I think there's an awful long way to go. And I do think the hybrid model will continue, where we go into an office. But if I take my Brazil employee, they can go into the office, but there's nobody specific to our role in that office.
Yeah.
But back to the point earlier with Lego, you're in the right space. You can go in and interact. So that will always be there. But I think, there's huge opportunity for agile developments in technology. And we were talking earlier about potential holograms and AI help to make things happen. And, over 5 to 10 years, there's a huge opportunity for change there.
Yep. Brilliant. Phil, thank you so much. And I want to move on and talk about the employee experience. So to Phil's point, there is a huge amount of what we can do around technology to centre around that employee experience. Workers want to engage with us as easily they do with everything they do in real life. So be that Uber, Deliveroo, Amazon, banking apps. Our recent human capital trends showed that companies in the top quartile for employee experience are typically 25% more profitable than those in the bottom quartile. I mean, that's a remarkable increase in terms of profitability. We've been working with the GBS team for one of our largest consumer clients to design their employee experience platform using ServiceNow and custom chatbot around the employee journey, integrating all of those functional teams into one experience team that can support the entire employee journey. It happens faster and it happens with much greater impact. So employee experience platforms, I believe, are going to be key to the future of work. Any perspectives from the audience on this? All volunteers welcome. No? Okay. I'll encourage you to share your perspectives with each other when we're not in a kind of stage situation. So now I want to talk about leadership as I think the biggest enabler of the future of work. The future of work means that we're going to have to constantly evolve and adapt. That's going to be the key to success. And I think this means three things as leaders. I think we have to be bold. I think we have to create an environment where our teams can flourish. And I think we need to, and probably most importantly, create purpose for our workers. So let's start with being bold. Leaders need a transformational and challenging leadership style. It means setting ambitious objectives, defining new aspirations, and rethinking our business models. It also means challenging established ways of working, which is difficult in any organisation. This really came home to me a few weeks ago. I was in my hometown of Glasgow for COP26, and I think one of the biggest challenges that we're all going to face as leaders is how do we lead the fundamental shift that we are all going to require individually and as organisations to address climate change. And I think this is where we can really start to think about how do we lean in any context and just drive that very significant shift. I think secondly, leadership is about us creating that environment where our people and teams can flourish. We need to instill a learning culture, remove barriers to innovation, to collaboration and to productivity, and creating an environment where risk-taking is encouraged and teams can experiment without fear of failure, an environment of psychological safety, so teams can adapt and embrace disruption. We're currently working with a large financial services client on this very topic, looking at the factors that influence risk-taking behaviours. And what we found is key is not only what leaders say, but how they respond in the moment that matters. The tone from the top is critical, but creating a culture of risk-taking and psychological safety is often the pressured middle that they have the power to either enable or disable organisations to be able to create that different culture. And in a post-COVID hybrid world, creating an environment that supports people to work how, when and where they want is critical. Morton talked to this, Phil also talked to this in his answer to the question. 3 in 5 workers who have been working remotely during the pandemic would prefer to continue to work remotely post-pandemic. 72% of workers believe they are equally or more productive working from home than in the office. And 61% of people surveyed would be willing to take a pay cut to maintain remote working status. So there is a real demand there for us to be able to work through how we deliver on where, how and what workers do. And ultimately, to echo Phil, it is a question of trust. Leaders have got to demonstrate trust in their people to make the right choice. And thirdly, and I think most importantly, is creating purpose for workers and continuously and meaningfully reinforcing that purpose through action and not just through words. I can't emphasise this one enough. The power dynamic between workers and employees is shifting. Deloitte's Global Human Capital Trends report found that 40% of workers are considering leaving their employer to join an organisation that better supports their purpose and values. 44% of millennials and 49% of Gen Z have made choices about the type of work they want to do or organisations they work for based on their personal ethics. These generations are determined to hold themselves and others accountable on society's most pressing issues. They want to be forces for good, and they look to their employers to provide them with the platform to enable them to do just that. Purpose is absolutely key. And finally, what makes us great as leaders is energy and resilience. It impacts how leaders show up, it impacts team results. And I think as leaders, we can learn from elite sport and understand that the moments off the court matter just as much as the moments on the court. So we can't consistently remain in a state of peak performance. We have to rest, we have to recuperate. So another question, from your perspective, what does good leadership look like in the future of work? We can't hear you. Can we switch this on? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Alison Cardle from AstraZeneca. 3 things for me. I think you've really touched on one of them, which is that purpose, how we motivate, how we inspire our people so that they really do have a clear sense of purpose and can see the purpose of the organisation. The second for me would be about being an inclusive leader, to make sure that people can really bring their best selves to work and feel able to speak up. And then the third, I think, is how we show concern for our individuals, whether that's through their well-being, whether that's how we help them navigate and simplify through the organisation. But for me, those 3 are absolutely fundamental.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alison. And I want to just finally touch on exactly your point around diversity and inclusion and how do we build that culture of diversity, of inclusion and of social responsibility for all of our people. I mean, there's no doubt that massive societal and political change has pushed diversity and inclusion up the agenda this year. And COP26 brought that social responsibility agenda into sharp focus, and we could see the support of people, of employees and of organisations, as well as government, to that. And at a macro level, the health crisis has highlighted and exacerbated existing economic and racial inequalities. However, there have been some positives. The shift away from the office as the centre of gravity has opened up a much more diverse talent pool for many organisations. And for businesses like ours, the shift has been very, very positive for a lot of our colleagues who say that they feel they could be virtually visible with leadership, and they see that as a real positive. Overall, I think giving workers greater autonomy over when, how and where they work has created a much more open and inclusive culture. So what is going to help organisational diversity and inclusion agendas withstand the short-term economic and social pressures that have been brought around by everything that's happened, by furloughs, by job losses, by lockdowns and homeschooling, as we try and get companies to build back better? I think we have to be very deliberate about embedding equality, inclusion and purpose into how we design our future of work. And I'd love to hear your views now on how we create that diverse and inclusive culture. And I think we're going to hear from Daniel, who is in Lisbon. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Anne-Marie. Good morning. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you well. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. So I think right now we are experiencing that on our day-to-day, right? And I think the most important part of this agenda, as you just mentioned, is to start the conversation, right? Inclusive and diverse culture is not something easy to build. So really requires honest and open conversations, right? Establishing a sense of belonging for everyone is not an easy task. We try to do that every day on our workspace. Empathetic leadership is key as well, right? So if you don't have that connection with the leadership about inclusiveness, there is no bond, no connection with the people. What I see is a top-down approach isn't enough, right? So just saying that we need to do this doesn't work. Sometimes it is a bottom-up and comes with belonging, right? Quotas don't automate inclusion. Of course, quotas can help with the KPIs, but doesn't create an inclusive culture, right? So I personally don't believe in quotas as a solution for inclusiveness. Inclusion is ongoing, right? So it's not one-off training. It's not a banner in the office. It is like a walk the talk every day and show and demonstrate the values that the company and the people has. So as a leader, I truly believe that our main challenge here is to maximize joy and connection among employees and minimize fear, because there are people with different credos, people with different beliefs that are difficult to change, and we don't want to change people, right? We want them to become closer to each other. So some things that we are taking action, tangible steps that I believe companies should take at this moment. A easy one right now is adapt office spaces, right? So we are talking about return to office. Maybe now is the perfect time to make spaces more inclusive for everyone, right? Considering lifts for wheelchair ramps or wheelchair ramps for staff members, gender neutral or accessible toilets, those basic stuffs that were not in the agenda before. I think it is the right time to do it. So the other thing that we are working very hard in our company at Amgen is evaluating hiring process, right? Inclusivity is all about creating equality and opportunity for all. It's not just having KPIs on the hiring process as well, but looking to people in a different way that we can really bring equality to our talent pool. The other thing that is tangible and very difficult to change is update the policies, right? So can you imagine a company that was office-centric and now going to remote work, how many opportunities we give for people that with impaired mobility, that probably in the past were taking inaccessible public transportation, cramped lifts, and today can work from a remote basis. That's a gift, right? So we really need to think beyond and above what we have seen in the past, really to change and open the companies to this new reality. Same thing with transgender staff, right? It may remove the trauma of surrounded gender public toilets. We see that talking to them, that's really a trauma for them, which one to use. On a remote basis, you can bring those people in and bring inclusiveness at the same time they're working and they are pertaining to the organization. We can talk also about health insurances that only accepts only traditional gender treatment and so on, right? I think the world was built on that, and we are here to transform, right? So I think to have that sense of belonging with everyone requires a lot of effort from everyone in the company. It's not one woman, one man show, but I think everyone needs to be aligned on that topic, really to bring people together to the same values. And of course, one thing that we exercise a lot at Amgen is we really seek input from everyone in the organization. We give voice to people. Employee resource groups are a great example. I saw some companies that are afraid of them, but my experience really shows the opposite, right? Employee resource groups, they really strengthen the connection between the people and the rest of the organization, the group and the rest of the organization. And as I said before, minimize fears. I think the sense of belonging and pertaining, it is very important for the inclusion. And I think those are the steps that we should take to bring a diverse and inclusive future for our employees. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those very tactical and practical examples. That was really helpful. Thank you. Our research at Deloitte shows that there are 6 signature traits that are needed in inclusive leaders. So these are commitment, courage, cultural intelligence, cognizance, curiosity, and collaboration. And organisations that get all of this right see a hugely positive impact on their business performance. They are 6 times more likely to be innovative and 6 times more likely to be agile and twice as likely to exceed their financial targets. So as I said at the beginning, the future of work is something that means so many things to many different people. Today we have covered, with the help of some people in this room and Daniel virtually, just a few aspects. And I would love to continue this conversation in the course of today and hear your perspectives. Thank you for listening, and back to Candice.
Anne-Marie, thank you so much for that very insightful presentation, and also to those that brought those questions to life. Just on the future of work, this very hybrid event, I just want to give you some statistics around it and what we have been able to achieve in a relatively short time and how we've adapted. You'll have about 400 people here today. Virtually, we have roughly 1,200 with a number of viewing parties, so that number would be much bigger. And it's represented by around 40 countries. Some countries are using interpretation services as well to broadcast this, and over 600 organizations are represented as well. So an incredible virtual and physical hybrid achievement. Right, with that, I think Anne-Marie's up in the studio. Over to you, Daughter and Chris.
Great, thanks, Candice. And what a fantastic presentation there from Anne-Marie. What did you think, Daughter?
I thought it was really interesting, first of all, but also cool to see how we got questions and comments directly coming in from abroad, where people are also joining our conference today.
Right, and I can see that Anne-Marie is joining us now in the studio. Welcome, Anne-Marie, and again, thank you on behalf of all the delegates here.
Thank you
and
so much.
The people who are dialing in as well.
Thank you.
I heard you talk about psychological safety. I do some work, I don't know if you know Amy Edmondson and Fearless Organisations, so my ears pricked up at that point. And we know that people have different needs when it comes to feeling psychologically safe at work, especially now moving to this hybrid way of working.
Yeah.
Speak to us a little bit more about psychological safety and what you're doing at Deloitte.
So I think what we're doing at Deloitte is definitely encouraging a culture of risk-taking. So take risks and we will celebrate it. We will not do anything negative. I think that's the first thing. I think the other thing about psychological safety is people feeling that they have an environment where they can easily speak up and they can escalate. And I think for leaders, that is about them being quite open, but also showing their own vulnerabilities to kind of set that culture. So we're also encouraging leaders to do that and have very kind of open forms of communication at all levels.
Daughter.
Yeah, Anne-Marie, I'm curious. We talk a lot about safety, we talk about well-being. How about yourself? Do you feel recharged and ready to reimagine?
I do. I am definitely an extrovert, so I am so delighted to be here with lots of people today. I think that, like most people, I found lockdown quite difficult. Initially, it was basically sitting at my PC on Zoom for too many hours a day. And I think until you get into the discipline, which I had to do, of actually getting out, seeing the sky every day, going for a walk, and you started to reset your kind of your agenda and your own routine. But I'm delighted that we are kind of coming back. I want to spend some more time at home. Working from home was good and it was productive, but I do want to spend time like today with people, connecting, getting inspiration, getting ideas, getting energy.
And a very important element in this hybrid way of working, and also how we execute the conference today, is technology.
Yes.
And looking at technology, you mentioned video calls. We hear a lot of good and bad. Do you feel that we have become slave to technology, or is it really a true enabler and critical for the success?
I think it is a true enabler and critical to our success, and I think we need to continually evolve it. I do think that during lockdown we moved from being nowhere to being, for many of us, not everybody, but many of us, totally online, literally overnight. I don't think we had time to quite work out what the best way to embrace that was. But I think now that we're here, on one extreme, we can now start to work through what is the best way for all of us to work to enhance our own well-being, our own development, and also our own energies.
Yeah, I think you're right. The pendulum needs to swing back a bit. And we have talked a lot about resilience in organizations, but people also need to be resilient and ready to absorb other shocks, right?
Yeah.
Have you got any advice for anyone sitting at kind of the shop floor in an organization?
I think continue to focus on yourself, work out what you need, take the time, focus on your well-being, look out for the people around you. I mean, one piece of advice we've given to all of our people is look out for each other, because I think that is one of the big enablers in just looking after each other and your own personal well-being.
Yeah. So did the limits of what we can actually do in terms of caring for others, did that also change? I mean, now we need to look after more things, not just if people are subject to alcoholism or abuse, but also mental well-being. How do we do that?
Absolutely. I think that's through giving people access to tools, sometimes technology tools, giving them access to people to talk to, and just encouraging them to, if not meet, because not everybody wants to meet, but talk to each other in person, check in how people are doing, asking that question very openly, how are you? Doesn't often happen, and people don't have the time to respond, and when you do, I think you often get a very honest response, and you can then work out if and how you can help.
Yeah.
Marie, thank you so much again. It would be great to have more time. Thanks for joining us, daughter and I, here in the studio. Thanks for your presentation, and we'll be seeing you around for the rest of the day, hopefully.
Thank you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.